Fired up?
Sorry, man.
Okay.
That's 80.
All right. It's 7:01. We're going to go to the next meeting here, our official normal council meeting. Okay. Call the order, and would you join me for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call?
Councilmember Kay,
Here?
Councilmember Stroman,
Here.
Councilmember Engel,
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem Walker. Here. Mayor Hagan.
Here. No presentations. We'll go on to the consent calendar. Does anyone want to pull any of the consent calendar? No? We want to go ahead and humor a motion on.
Ready to go to the conference?
Anyone in the audience want to pull any of the consent calendar? No? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar as is in the agenda.
Need a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. No nays. All righty. We'll go on to staff communications and updates.
We do have two listed. We'll go through those, starting with Celinda, and then if there's any other comments from the group, we can add those after.
Hi, good evening, everyone, Mayor, council members. I do have a 5-minute presentation on our Q3 numbers. And let's see if we'll put those up on the screen. Okay, so we do have in the packet detailed reports for Q3, but this is a nice summary of, a nice roll-up summary of what we have. So in this first slide, at Q3, our target numbers should be around 75%. That's if everything was equal and measured. We know from prior presentations how our revenues and expenses are kind of lopsided. So we'll go over that a little bit here. So we are at about 71% of the revenue we expect for this budget cycle, and we are about 77% of the expenses. So this slide pretty much tells us everything we need to know. We've got about 1.2 million left over for the budget year for our expenses, and we're looking for about 1.5 to roll in over the next 3 to 4 months. And some of that being sales tax and property tax. They have a cleanup payment, they have a quarter payment, so we're gonna be looking for that well into July.
And you feel good with where we're at?
I do. At mid-year, we were looking at about a $50,000 deficit. Right now, we're at a $44,000, so it's going the right way. And these are straight line numbers too, so it's just cold math. It doesn't have the story behind what the numbers are. So we're doing well by that measurement. We have expended about $434,000 less than at the same time last year. And that's going to be due to a lot of the different expense reductions that we've done across the board. All the different managers here have participated in that. And we've collected more revenue. The story with the $540,000 more revenue are some one-time payments. So we're going to get that on this next screen. This screen is a little busy. It's our revenues, but we have some blue arrows. Use of money, other agencies, and other revenues are greater than what we had anticipated with the budget numbers. So that's why they are negative. So you see all those negatives there in the middle, and it's kind of like, what is all of that? But we can explain all those numbers, like our investments. We expected about 60,000. We're at about 144 right now, just in the Q3. And this is just general fund, so it doesn't have everybody else in the enterprise fund, it's just the general fund. We've got some one-time funding for the library repairs, and I think we had that in the consent calendar, the items for that. And we have also a generous donation from the estate of Mark Reagan for $183,700. So that money is sitting in there in the miscellaneous revenues. So it's not as if we have earned a whole bunch more revenue. These are one-time payments, except for the investments.
One question to that point,
Sure.
the donation for Mark Reagan, is that sitting in recreation, or where is that, where are those?
Right now, it's sitting in the miscellaneous revenue for general fund so that it doesn't skew the monies that we have coming into the revenue stream for recreation. If I plop that in there, it would look like we had this big boon in, collections. So we want to keep that separate for now until we find a targeted use for it. And it'll go into that line.
I just want to make sure that we're not pulling that out to balance the budget and it just sits there.
No, that will definitely, we can make sure to provide reports for where those dollars are spent. And that'll be a completely separate discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last thing on this slide we have, it pretty much shows that by the quarters, Q1, Q2, and Q3 there, quarter 3 is going to be our highest collections for revenue. And that's what we've seen and what we've talked about in the past, that we have this really skewed beginning of the year where we have to make up expenses with the general fund, and then we end up receiving all that money back towards the end of the year in a big windfall almost. And we have our budget targets. We're always talking about how much have we spent, how much have we received. It's 3 quarters throughout the year right now, so we're at 75%. That becomes a real simple number. So we have to look at what our spending is. We've spent 77% of our budget, and we've received in a little bit less. About this straight line here will tell us that if we went spending dollar for dollar in this last quarter, just like we did the previous 3, we would need $44,000. But that's not the case. So I feel very strongly that we'll be able to pull this out to a nice balanced budget this year. What else? So it's a good slide, but it goes along with the detailed reports that we have in the packet. This again is a real high-level summary. It summarizes public works and police and planning, recreation, all these different things. So in the public works sector, we have only spent about 46% of their budget, which is great. They've got a good deal of money. So they've got a nice positive green triangle there.
All right, stop praising Public Works.
Below that, we have police. They're still doing good. They have $850,000 left in their budget to spend. We know that will probably be gone in that last quarter, but they're still on target. We go all the way down to say like recreation. We have a red circle there. They have actually overspent what's in the budget. So next year that tells us we'll have to put some more in those budget lines so that we'll know better what's actually going to be spent. And that's really what this does. It gives us a tool so that we can right size the next budget and put money where it should go. Any questions so far?
No, any questions up here? Okay.
Keep going. Then I know it's kind of a busy slide, but it gives you personnel costs, all kinds of different things that we have so far in a real high level. This again gives us our general fund activity by quarter. Gives us 5 years worth of historical data without the transfers. The transfer is money that we have to move back and forth, and that really skews those baseline dollars. So we can see relatively how we're doing. We can pretty much what we know. We're going to get most of our revenue in the last 2 quarters, where we actually spend more of our money in the first and third. And these are what we have going forward. For expenses, we're going to continue to monitor our spending, reduce costs, improve efficiencies, appropriate any costs we have to the enterprise funds rather than letting it sit in the general fund, that type of thing. We have our nice strategic plan now, so we can tie all of our expenses out to that. I fully anticipate our budget in June of 2025 balancing out. You might have a little more revenue than what we anticipated, but that's always good. And my goal is to get our next budget started the year that we're living now in October of 2025, so we can kind of start that final end-of-year process sooner. We're going to increase our investment income, hopefully. We'll see what the market does. We've had all good things in that area. Monitor all of our actuals, seek out more revenue sources, all the things that we should be doing, we're going to continue doing. And we'll use all the information that we've gathered from this exercise to make our next budget even more exact. So, out of all that, is there any questions?
Any questions up here?
Yeah, just one. What's the status of the audit?
Right now, the current audit for 2024 is taking longer than I had anticipated. I had hoped to have it done in the month of April. The firm that we're using is very thorough. They have looked through everything. So I'm very confident that they have taken the time, the due diligence with the year. They're happy with 2024, all the transactions and everything that transpired in that year. They are taking a little more time, pretty much proving out the old numbers, the numbers from 2023 that the previous auditor had prepared, and that's where the sticking point is at this time. But I do anticipate they'll get that settled.
Yeah,
It
like
is taking longer than I had hoped
Do you have an
to.
approximated date on that, or?
And I'll just add color to that. That was a very diplomatic answer. I do think our new auditor is having trouble reconciling the numbers from prior audits. And I don't think that means one thing or another yet, but since you can't retrace it, there's a process that we will need to go to. We wanted to have it on this meeting. We thought we were going to have it on the April 21st meeting. It's looking now like we'll have it on the first meeting in May as we go through that process. This year is extremely clean, and I don't think there's any issues with prior years. Just we can't quite trace out the numbers.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions up here? Any questions from the audience for staff or Celinda? All righty, I'll bring it back. As always, you're doing a great job, so.
Thank you.
keep up the
That's
good
all I
work.
have for this evening.
All righty. I guess we'll go on to the next.
Thank you, Mayor. As the presentation is coming up, our new practice is to bring in front of you, pavement restoration, is to bring in front of you projects before they go out to bid so that you and the community are aware of the other one. Sorry. No problem. So the first project is the 2025 pavement restoration project. Our new approach is to do a pavement restoration project every year using the available transportation funds that we do have. And in our approach, if we go to the next slide, in our approach, we look at two different types of treatment. We will crack seal roads each year. Cracks form in the pavement as water and things get in there, and there's a separation of the actual pavement. So one year we will go and crack seal, the next year we will slurry on top of those crack seals. And so you can see here in a blown out view the extent of what we plan to do this year with both the crack seal and the slurry seal. And if we scroll slowly through the next slides, it's just a zoomed in picture. I don't know if it's 10 years or what, we haven't quite mapped it all the way out, but if we continue to do this, we will hit every street in the city within a reasonable number of years, approximately 10 years. And that is the goal, to stay on top of our streets in that fashion.
Quick question, do we have like a general idea, like how long those typically, wear out? Is it 10
Yeah, definitely.
10
Kind
years?
of like the city manager is stating, and sorry if I'm interrupting, but it's on average, you can, excuse me, get 10 to 15 years out of a treatment onto an actual street. One of the reasons why we're trying to do that, say 8 to 11 year process, so we can kind of get it done so it doesn't look as effective as it has in years past. But in general, people do need to keep in mind, when we do go crack seal and micro seal, you're still going to get hairline cracks that do come back fairly quick after. It's just a matter of closing in those bigger cracks for the infiltration of the water and stuff so it doesn't recede in. Because other than that, then you'd have to actually take the whole pavement out and repave.
So that seems like a reasonable timeline then.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry about that, city manager. Did you have anything
That
else?
is all on this one, unless there are further questions.
Any more questions on the?
We do have another project.
So you're going to go out to bid?
We are, yes.
Okay.
Every construction project, we will go out to bid. So again, we plan to go out later this month, and we want to share these with you. The next project is the Yosemite Sidewalk Infill Water Line and Pavement Overlay Project. It is a mouthful. If we go to the next slide. This project for the sidewalk infill was supposed to be part of the Dent area sidewalk infill project. We did pull it out for a couple of different reasons. One, because the landscaping in this area is a little more, what would you say, mature, there's a little more effective of yards that are there. And so we wanted to have a little more detail put into our plans and give people the option to sort of digest what has been done in the Dent area sidewalk. The other more important reason is we did want to do a water line rehab project. And so we didn't want to do a project there, sidewalk infill, and then come back either a season or 2 seasons after and do a water line project. So we wanted to do it all at the same time. So these are lining up nicely. So the overall project will be the rehab, basically a new water line, upgraded water line, new sidewalks, as you can see, and then a pavement overlay. In the sort of third picture on the bottom right, we do have a temporary speed bump that has been installed many years ago. That will be improved to the full sort of pavement speed hump that you see on Coley and David and the like. That will be included as part of this project because we are already doing pavement in close proximity to that temporary speed bump.
Where is that?
Yeah, it's on Yosemite further east.
Where the current, do you know where the current speed bump is now, close towards the end of Brendan?
The
Exact same location will be removed.
Brennan.
I mean Campbell, excuse me, wrong side of town.
right.
Campbell.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll be removing that existing temporary
That
rubber
little-
one there and
Okay.
putting in the hump.
Got it.
Exact same location.
Okay.
So, city attorney, when this comes before council, given the close proximity, do myself and the mayor have to recuse ourselves from this?
It's possible.
Okay.
We'll evaluate it. Because it's a question of the materiality of the improvements relative to your property values, and number two, whether the public generally exception would apply, but it's impossible to know that without doing like an inventory of all the properties that would be similarly located to this project.
I don't see our property values going up because of a speed hump, but just
And
figured.
they go down. It doesn't matter, it just has to be, it has to move the needle in one way or another. Yeah, we'll have to look at it.
Sorry, didn't mean to.
No, you're fine. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
Nope.
Anything up here as far as questions?
Have we done sort of outreach on this phase 2 of the neighbors?
We have done some outreach. In fact, I've met personally with a few of the residents. I'm actually meeting another one tomorrow. But we also still are going to do one more team walk here fairly soon to go out from door to door. So we're trying to do more outreach than we did prior. We have done some up to this point, but we still will continue here in the next few weeks to do more.
When we talked about this previously, I did mention the property owner at Elizabeth. What would that be? The east side of Elizabeth in Yosemite, as well as the property owner. I guess it would almost be directly across the street where that big tree is. Both of those residents were very concerned that we were taking up, with a new sidewalk, that we were taking up some of their front yards.
Yes, as Justin mentioned, we have had very direct, detailed conversations with many of the residents, and we will continue to go out there. It should be noted, we've all been used to the yards. In this case, the city has all the right-of-way that is needed, meaning that is sort of city land already in the place that the sidewalks will go. That doesn't change anyone's opinion about the impact on their yard, for sure, but that should be stated.
Right. Any other questions up here? Any questions out in the public? Hi, Sherry?
So I have two questions. One with the streets. On the streets, it's hard to see the map from way back there. It's
Is this for Public Works
For
or?
Public Works. So on the one in front of the high school, there are some holes, not just cracks, and there's some divots, not just, so how are those going to be handled? And are those streets in front of the high school, I couldn't tell whether that was part of the repair or just the seal, because they were supposed to seal it last year, and I'm telling you, they didn't get, they told you they did my street. I'm on Sacramento right in front of the school. They did part of it, they didn't do all of it.
No, fully aware, yes, so your street, that street is on a micro seal. And currently now, you'll maybe even notice, you had pointed out a few of the holes that last time you were here. So we're in the process of actually filling those in with new asphalt to bring up to level. And you're absolutely right, some of the cracks were not taken care of, and some of the cracks, what we call spider cracks, which are cracks within 2-3 inches of each other. You can't really crack seal those. So that's why you'll see more of those left out rather than the bigger ones. But yes, it will be micro sealed, and anything that has been big, we're in the process of filling now. So when that micro seal goes down, it's all cured together.
Okay, I'm worried about the holes because they're big and they're getting bigger and, yeah, okay.
No problem.
Second thing would be on the sidewalks. So when the first sidewalks were done in Yosemite, and you said that this second phase was like an extension to Dent, you know, Campbell's a far way away from Dent, so that's, I'm sorry, but if you're saying it's for school, that's a long ways away from Dent. Right, again, and yes, I live there, but if I didn't live there, my sidewalks are fine, and I maintain my sidewalks. I put in all new sidewalks, and I paid for it.
And I would have to say that not the hump itself, the speed hump that's going in, it's not so much for school. Really what it is, so the project's starting there on Mitchell and continuing over to Elizabeth, and that's where we're stopping the sidewalk because there is sidewalks continue on. But since we are on Yosemite, that will save some of the crews as far as labor coming out, so that's why we're adding that speed hump at the same time for cost effect.
I don't care about the speed hump. I mean, I think that's fine. The only
Sure.
thing that's going to slow people down, because they do drive.
Sure.
People drive crazy sometimes in this town. I don't have an opposition against the speed hump. That's not my opposition. My concern is directly in front of 2 other schools, there's a lot of sidewalk damage. And not everyone can take care of it. If I had to take care of it right now, I couldn't take care of it right now.
Sure.
You know, I took care of it when I was able to do that, but there are older people and there are school kids, and I'm right in front of the high school, and there's some good size differences in sidewalk cracks, and, you know, this one's up here and this is down here, and I've seen older people trip and I've seen some of the kids trip. So if I keep hearing, you know, that we're doing it for the schools, right in front of the 3 houses in front of the school is a lot closer than Campbell in front of Dent. That's all I'm saying. So please don't say that it's for the schools.
Oh, the sidewalk in Campbell goes the whole way down to where this project is tying in. So this is just the extension.
No, I get that. I get that. But what I'm saying is there's others, and there's other concerns if you're citing safety, okay, and you're citing safety in schools. There are other more serious safety sidewalk concerns around schools. Even if I didn't live there, my sidewalks, I wouldn't be affected because
Right.
my sidewalks are fine, so I wouldn't benefit from this in any way, shape, or form, other than walking in front of my neighbors or across the street in front of my neighbors, okay? And it's not just my street in front of the high school. If you go down all of those older streets, quite a few of them have big gaps and trips, and there's a lot of older people and younger people, not just high schoolers, that are on these sidewalks. So that was all. That was just my concern. Thanks.
Thank you, Sherry.
I think that's a fair point. The city has not yet considered repairing sidewalks. What we have done is we have capitalized on funding opportunities to install sidewalks where they're not located, and we have geographically located the sidewalk infill around high-traffic areas to Dent School first. We plan to move on in future years, whether it's next year or prior years, to El Portal and then to the high school, with the goal, using transportation funding that is available for such projects, to infill sidewalk projects.
So those funds can or can't be used for repair?
Those funds are not intended for repair.
So what if we hypothetically took them out? Would it now be infill? Or
Get in trouble up here.
just a thought? Just joking.
So, Mr. French, To that point, has staff looked into, because this is now the second or third time that Sherry has mentioned the sidewalks around the high school, if we can't apply transportation funds, has staff looked at applying for safe route to school funds to replace some of these sidewalks around the schools?
Typically, those funds are not, again, available for replacement. That doesn't mean we can't explore, at the direction of the council, other funding opportunities for replacement if we so choose. We just have not explored that option yet.
Oh, I think we should look into that, and I'm sure Ms. Vargas is going to talk about the light and her son on First Street. So, I mean, there are issues around the schools that, you mentioned it previously, that there are issues around the schools that if we can't use transportation funds and we don't want to do it as a capital improvement project, we should definitely look at other grant opportunities to keep the flow going for the sidewalk repairs.
At what point, though, do we start paying for everybody's sidewalks, if that's the case? Because if we do one, then we have to do somebody else's.
Point taken.
Gabrielle, this is your time to speak here. What do you have?
I have a question for Frank. What did you say in terms of the property value, and how far does a council member need to be from a project that they're benefiting from? Specifically, the Dent Sidewalk project. If you live or own a home that is being redone, would they have had to have recused themselves from voting on that?
You talking about a past project?
No, the Dent Sidewalk project.
Okay. Generally, the rule is, and it obviously is very factually specific, so it's going to depend on the specific improvements at issue. For example, a pure water line upgrade, if we're just replacing water mains and streets, there's specific exceptions for that. And other required projects that have to happen on streets. So it depends on the specific improvements that are at issue. If there's new sidewalk, new curb or gutter, potentially speed humps, maybe that would rise to the level of the project that we'd have to deal with in terms of that PPC regs. And all I will say is generally, if you're within 500 feet of that project, and that project is a qualifying project, generally you'd have to recuse yourself.
So
Once you get out 500, then it's like between 500 and 1,000, it's a maybe, and then over 1,000, it's a probably not.
So with the Dent Sidewalk project, with the ADA compliant ramps on the curb, I don't know what you call them, and replacement, is it not true, Ms. Councilmember Walker, that you own 1604 and 1608 Brayton Street? That
I don't own them, but that's where I reside, yes.
the deed is in your name.
I wish the deed was in my name.
I'm not going to provide
That would
like
be
live conflict of interest advice with council members. I really want to look at all the facts and all the specifics first. I'm just providing a high level. Generally, if it is a qualifying project, you're within 500 feet on property you own, you could have a conflict. But if it's a property you rent, that's a whole different story. We'd have to look at that too, because there's separate regs for rental property.
Understood.
Yeah.
In speaking of the school, nothing is being done around El Portal. However, between El Portal and, which I believe is, I don't know, is it Oklahoma Street, and McHenry, we have one sidewalk, or two crossings for sidewalk crossings, or whatever you call street crosswalks. Is there any chance of utilizing any of this money to get another crosswalk? Because you have kids, I mean, it's a heavy traffic area, and you have kids just crossing the street, which I learned recently, jaywalking is no longer a crime, but it's dangerous, and there's nothing for the kids that go that way. Well,
Actually, last week, the superintendent of maintenance, John Lau, and I, we actually drove all the schools and looked at crosswalk options as far as crosswalks, walk humps, and lighting in the area. So we are working on a plan for all schools to try to make them safer for sure.
All right, thank you.
What was that location again, Ms. Vargas?
What was that?
What was that location again that you mentioned?
Well, between Oklahoma Street, I believe it's Oklahoma, where El Portal is, there's a crosswalk there, and the next one is at McHenry and First.
And nothing in between?
There's nothing in between.
Fisk and Oklahoma is your crosswalks.
Yeah, and it's quite a distance for the kids that live over on Pioneer, or, I mean, to do it safely is what I'm looking at, not just, they're doing it anyways, they're just crossing. But we still have a major traffic issue there with people speeding, and so they're not concerned about kids crossing the street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? We'll bring it back online. Anything? Okay. City manager, you want to continue, or you got anything else you want to?
We'll start there with Chief. Or
Chief?
Lynn, did you have anything else for staff communications?
No, if anyone else has any questions about the budget or the audit or anything else we're doing right now.
I don't currently, but
Okay.
does anyone?
All righty then. No, nothing for me. Thank you.
Okay. Chief?
Nothing at this time.
Okay.
Couple of small items, Mayor. Just want to let everybody know that last Wednesday, I believe it was, we had a gentleman named Gavin Brown start employment with Public Works. So just wanted to welcome him to the team. So far, so good. A young kid, but seems eager, following up with a few things, concerned how he looks through the day, so that's always a good thing. Don't see him on his phone, so somebody that's young age and on their phone's always a positive thing. So you guys may see him out and about. Doesn't quite have his uniforms in yet, but make sure you treat him with respect when you see him, please. The sidewalk project on Dent, since we've been talking about it, really we probably should be done, but in my opinion, we're about 95%. My staff and a few of the contractors, we've got a few little housekeeping things that we want to get taken care of by the end of the week before I can say we're complete. There's a few landscaping items that I want to kind of fine tune there. But all the pavement markings, all the signs, the sidewalks, everything's been installed. I'm fairly pleased on how that's been going. Also, I think it was also mentioned a few tonight, but I want everybody to know that Public Works is fully aware of the amount of weeds and the weeds issue we have right now. We're definitely in the process of working on our city properties, alleyways, and certain streets and sidewalks to get taken care of with knocking the weeds down and spraying. So please keep the calls coming in, and we'll get to them just as soon as we can. And also, let everybody know, starting next week on April 16th, our farmers market will fire up again. So we're getting the park ready for that. We'll have some new decor out there on our deco lights, but hope that everybody can make it out there on the Wednesdays out at farmers market. That's all for Public Works.
We're not seeing any other pothole issues out there? You feel like ground's pretty level?
Out at the sidewalk project?
No, for the farmer's market?
Oh, yeah, well, that's one of the things where I'm pretty sure everything's good, but that's one of the things that we're looking into right now. Looking at the different level of the bricks, making sure none of the bricks need to get adjusted or situated there.
Gotcha.
And then of course, definitely in the lawn, all the potholes and stuff there, making sure that's all dialed in. Along with getting all the awnings up to help with the shade when the hot weather does come.
Well, keep up the good work. Tell the crew, thank you for their hard work.
Sure will, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have something for Public Works.
Yeah.
And this is probably getting too much in the weeds, Justin, so take it with a grain of salt. But now that we're moving into phase 2 for Yosemite sidewalk repair, it may make sense to do a quick little debrief, lesson learned exercise with you and Bill and city manager to kind of, because obviously you learned some lessons.
Oh, yeah.
On
definitely got some notes for the next one.
Phase 1. So to make sure that those concerns and how some residents were impacted during phase 1, those concerns are addressed going into phase 2.
Yeah, 100%. Good advice. Appreciate that.
Thanks.
Anything else up here?
Just real quick, I want to follow up. On those roads that we did see that are coming up for the slurry.
Okay.
One of them, it looks like it was the same road we did last time around. Is this like a second
So
On some road?
what you may see is last year we did crack seal. This
Okay.
year, the same street that got crack seal will be slurry sealed.
Oh, got it,
So that,
okay.
maybe that's CW, but there won't be any duplicate same work. It'll be
Okay.
a slurry on top of micro seal, so to help seal the top of that road.
Okay, and then citizens will be notified and their cars have to be removed for that, correct? Is that how that
Yeah,
works?
they'll definitely be given at least 24 to 48 hours notice. We will give them plenty of notice, but then the contractor, prior to the job beginning, will give them notice to get their vehicles out of the way, yeah.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
And to that point, just want to mention, I'm still getting, don't let your head get too big, but I'm really getting compliments from a lot of residents on phase one, that you took the time and were door knocking and actually listening to people and listening to their concerns and treating their front yards like it's your front yard. And that means a lot, so thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions up here? Any other questions for staff out in the public? Oh, online? All righty, we'll come back to matters from the audience then, next.
I have an update, Mayor.
Oh, go for it.
Okay. A couple items. 4 are follow-up on council request items. There's 2 regarding the railroad. 1 was last meeting regarding railroad right-of-way and beautification issues. I did have the opportunity to speak with the Senior Director of Public Affairs at Union Pacific and talk through some options we may have. One of the options is a potential beautification lease where they will allow us access to the property and we are able to maintain it. We are in the early stages of even exploring that, but I want to let you and the public know that we have had conversations and we will see where that goes.
Like a lease for $1 kind of thing, or like?
I think it would be a free lease. We just we
Okay.
have access and are able to, at our cost, likely maintain the property.
Gotcha. Thank you.
The other one regarding the railroad is the striping or signage at the southbound turn onto McHenry at the BNSF line. We are having high-level conversations with BNSF, Caltrans, and the CPUC regarding this. It's no simple matter to affect or adjust or, do things around the railroad. We do have a striping plan, basically new paint on the ground that we think will help in talking with these parties. This is now going through BNSF for approval. We hope it will be approved here in the coming weeks, but wanted to let you know that we do have a plan and we are talking about that with BNSF.
Thank you.
A couple other items. We are also looking into public hearing notifications and the enhanced notification options for all public hearings in the city. We have some options that we are exploring, and we will put that together for your review. And then we are also working with our city attorney on a fee, what would you call it? Not a waiver, but a fee waiver, I guess we'll call it, for our partner agencies, the school district and the fire district, to react to council's comments at a prior meeting. We will look at that and bring options before you probably in the May timeframe.
Have we also considered the ambulance?
Yeah.
Is that included in?
Sure. Any approach that we take can cover any partner that
Okay.
the council so chooses.
Thank you.
And I'll just mention, there is a lot of positivity that maybe came from negativity regarding the recreation program in general. The rec commission is really, the new rec commission is really up and running. We've had very productive meetings. And I will say you are seeing the community sort of really stepping up and bringing not only criticisms, but solutions to the table, which I think is a very, very positive thing in the long run. Very fruitful conversations over the last formal meetings and then in between the meetings on direction that we can go. Staff is working very hard to communicate in a more robust fashion, as well as receive and react to feedback, which I also think is helping. Every comment, complaint that we get is now going up to the Recreation Commission, so it is daylighted in a more obvious fashion than just sitting with staff and being addressed or not addressed as may be appropriate. So a lot of positivity coming in the recreation space. And so I just wanted to share that with you.
Ready? Thank you. Anything else? All right, we'll go to matters presented from the audience. The public may address the city council on any item that is on the agenda at the time the item is called. The public may also address the city council on any item not on the agenda that is within the subject matter of the city of Escalon. Each speaker is limited to a maximum of 5 minutes. Unused time may not be yielded to another speaker. You may state your name and address for the record, however, it is not required. Due to state law, action will be taken on an item that is not on the agenda, and except for brief responses, the council is prohibited from discussing any item not on the agenda. If it requires an action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on a future agenda. The determination of whether an item is within the subject matter of the city is a discretionary decision made by the mayor. All righty then. So anyone want to say anything or come up?
It was not a criticism of Public Works?
Yeah, no, that's
Okay,
fine, totally.
Because I'm really appreciative for
I
what
take
you
criticism
guys
just
did.
as well I do the compliments, it's
Well,
fine,
but it wasn't
Sherry.
a criticism of Public Works, it really wasn't. It was just, some ideas and thoughts, and, and your point was really good, and I just want to say thank you. And Celinda, again, thank you. What a difference a year makes with someone who's doing their job. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Sherry. All right, anyone else from the audience would like to say anything? Okay. All righty then, we'll come back to the online. Anything there? Dais, go to public hearings. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. These are two public hearings, largely revolving similar funds. We'll take them one at a time. This is a process we go through every year. We do receive, for the first item, it is called Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG for short, program funds through the county. We receive up to $75,000 each year from HUD, which is a federal agency, through the county. Primarily, these funds are used to assist low-income residents, provide decent housing, and expand economic development options, although the county has chosen to de-emphasize economic development use and is really focusing on decent housing and infrastructure and assistance for low-income residents. So there is what's called a NOFA, a Notice of Funding Availability, that is sent out. We sent that out in January. And you will see attachment 2 on your staff report here is all of the nonprofit or other organizations that we sent letters to directly. As I mentioned, I did not mention this. The county receives applications directly for countywide programs, and they will identify for each city within the county how they will intend to serve and how many people. And so the county is not receiving applications for those groups to Escalon, for all the cities, Lodi, all the cities, and then back to them. So they will review those applications and then send those to us. We receive 15% for services, it's about 11,000, and then 85% for projects, infrastructure projects, or other needs. Historically, the city has not utilized the other funds because we do not have a low-income designated census tract. Now, more recently, we have been made aware that we are able to income survey certain areas to be able to utilize these funds. If we so chose, I will mention we are already doing projects sort of year round, and while this is an additional funding source of about $63,000, we may not have capacity to even fit it into our schedule. And we can make that available for some of our nonprofits. I know that we were working with a nonprofit up until deadline day to see if they could utilize the funds. Unfortunately, they were not able to get everything in order and had to pass this year for that opportunity. So the 4 proposals currently for the nearly $11,000 is fair housing. It's for $1,500, and these are for fair housing services. So any tenant landlord issue, this is free representation by this group. So any Escalon resident that has an issue with their landlord and they need or want representation, they can't afford it, they can go through this group to get assistance. In the past 3 years, we have helped respectively 170, 380, and 133 residents through this program, or Escalon residents have been helped. Meals on Wheels is requesting $3,000. This is food for those that are homebound and 60 years or older, as well as congregate meal sites. So if you think of the lunch program at the community center. The food bank is requesting $3,500. They have a mobile farmers market program that they work with through CARE, which is in this community, of course. They do cooking demos, nutritional information, diet information for those 60 years and older. And we have helped close to 360 in the prior year and 310 this year. Meals on Wheels, we don't have numbers for. And then the last program is Aging Rental Assistance. They are requesting $3,250. This is rental assistance, rent assistance for those 60 years and older to avoid eviction. So they will provide up to 3 months of assistance to avoid eviction. We have helped just one in the 2 years, I think that it's been in existence. In February 2023, a resident, an Escalon resident, received nearly $2,500 to stave off eviction. So that is how we intend to use the $11,000 of the 75. Again, we were unable to get a completed application in time to use a portion or all of the nearly $63,000 this year.
All right, any questions? Up here? No? Any questions in the audience? No? Online? Okay, back to the dais. Any statements, questions before we, I guess, take a...
We have to open the public hearing.
Yeah, I'm opening the public hearing for number 7.
Okay.
And I was asking the audience if they had anything. And it didn't appear so. So we're back to the dais. Okay.
I have a comment, I guess, or an observation. With the allocation of the $3,250 to an agency that we haven't used, not that I don't want money going to support older adults to avoid eviction, but it looks like there's only one person that used it in 2023, and less than what we're allocating. Do we have any outreach, or is there any outreach to people to let them know that these funds are available to them, so that maybe we can help more people, or show that these funds are being helpful to our citizens?
We have minimal outreach. The county certainly has additional outreach, and this program has outreach. anytime the question comes, can we do more? Absolutely. The answer will always be yes. And if it's the purview of, or if it's the desire of the council, we can absolutely enhance our outreach, primarily through probably the senior programs that are already existing here. And, you know, social media is kind of a double-edged sword, especially as you get to the older residents. We can put it in the newsletter and work with our existing groups.
Yeah, possibly Fun Bunch would be a good outreach to let them know that this program is available. That would be my first thought.
Okay. Anyone else up here like to make a statement or any kind of observation, or are we good to go?
Can you go back to page 64? Down to the bottom. So, just a question, if there's 3,500 for the mobile farmers market total, has there been a determination as far as what the split would be to go? Is it just 50-50? Half goes to CARE, half goes to Escalon Strong, or what is that determination?
I think it's what they requested.
That's what they requested. We didn't, Escalon Strong didn't request any.
Okay, so
I think this is coming from CARE.
read the last sentence.
This is coming through the program that has an existing relationship with CARE.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Like,
the source of the funds is the Emergency Food Bank and Family Services of Stockton, San Joaquin. And so we're giving the 3,500 to them, and then they split it up between CARE and Escalon Strong.
Again, this is their proposal. They have an existing relationship with CARE.
you talking about like CARE and Escalon Strong, they're collaborating, is that what you mean?
No, I just want to make sure that both organizations get
Yeah, it's
what,
fair.
get what they need. That's all I'm trying to.
No, I think you're right. Everything's fair
Okay.
from what I see. I don't see anything. I appreciate the thought, though. Okay.
Oh, I mean, I certainly don't want to take away the 3,500 from the other requests, but I sure would like extra funds to go towards our local groups than having one resident take advantage of that 3,500, because the money's going to go to the one that's on the last page, on page 65. So we're giving them $3,500, and then they're the Human Services Agency. We're giving them $3,250, and we've had one resident take advantage of that in over a year. So then, what happens to the other $3,250? Does it go to help other residents within the county?
That'll go back to the.
It's probably because it, like what Pro Tem Walker said, it's not being advertised maybe enough.
Okay.
Obviously, the concern there, right, is if it's not funded and there is an instance of someone needing it, it's not available. That's a tough one.
So I'm under the impression that this goes to the Human Services Agency, and then it's kind of like in a big pot, right? We don't just have the 3,250, it's just our contribution to the big pot, is that right? And then our residents can also kind of apply for that? We're just kind of...
Maybe reverse. So this countywide agency will allocate the resources they need for each community, the county and each city within the county. And so that money is allocated for Escalon. Now, at the end of the year, if it is not utilized, it will go into the common pot and be available for others.
Okay.
Well, back to, I mean, I understand this program is for rental assistance, but back to a topic we were talking about previously is, could this be applied to a senior that wanted to rehab their sidewalk? Just something to consider. I don't know if that's eligible or not, but maybe you look at that for FY 25, 26. Just something to consider.
Okay. Anyone else? Anything else? Okay, then. We need to do a motion, are we good?
Yeah, a motion adopting the resolution.
Alrighty, anyone want to?
Resolution, excuse me.
Yeah, I'll motion to adopt the resolution approving an expenditure plan for the city of Escalon's fiscal year 25-26 CDBG program.
I'll second that.
Second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. No nays? Okay. So we are on to number 8. City manager.
Thank you. Largely the same process here, similar monies, not exact the same, similar monies from HUD filtered through the county. We have just over 15,000. And what is being proposed here is a gap loan program. So this is a program that provides a deferred down payment assistance, 20% of the sale price, or up to 15,000. I don't know if there's any homes there for 75,000, but up to 15,000 in down payment assistance program. There is also a component that is a loan for rehab of housing stock, meaning a roof needs to be repaired, HVAC, anything that would make it less livable or more livable if it was improved. So there's a loan program for those types of home improvements. And that is what is being requested and recommended for this $15,096. We do receive money on a 3-year cycle. We have not typically used the amount of money that has been allocated to us. And so every 3 years, there's kind of a year that drops off and the new year is added, a year that drops off and a new year is added. So currently we have $22,584 for each of those programs available.
Any thoughts up here?
If we don't use it for 1 year, can we reapply for the next year?
Yeah, so far it's been recycling, and we do get the approximately 7,000 for each account here. But after that 3rd year, it drops off. That's why we're sort of capped at the 22,000.
The concern for me is that we haven't had a resident use it in 15 years, so why are we gonna take it if no one's using it?
Could also go back to the advertisement thing, potentially. Might be worth throwing that out there, see if someone needs a roof fixed. Anything else up here? Okay, we'll go out to the public. Jerry, you need your roof fixed?
No, my roof's good too.
She needs a new sidewalk.
No, I don't. My sidewalk's fine. So I have a question on the first-time homebuyer thing. How do they apply for that? Is this something that they need to apply for before they find a home so that they get pre-qualified for this, or that they get approved for it? Or do they wait until they actually, because I'm sure there's quite a few people that would take advantage of this if they knew it. So what is the process?
Yeah.
Do they come to you ahead of time? Like right now, to buy a home, you've got to be pre-approved before you even look at a house. So is that the same process here? That would be good to know, because we could get the word out on that and utilize this money and help some of our residents.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a program that is administered through the county, so any application would go through the county. In terms of when you apply, I certainly would apply in advance, but you have to have some information available. So I wouldn't do it too late in the process, but you can't, of course, do it too early in the process and just say, I think I'm gonna have something, can you provide the money? So there's,
See, that makes a difference in what they're looking for, so it's kind of a, I think a little more detail on how someone would go about applying for that would be really beneficial, because I can think of people that could utilize that.
Yeah, great point. So the way these things typically work is there's sort of this pre-application process where you say you're in the market, you want to look, you coordinate with them, you work with them, they will give you the information and the timing, they will tell you what you may be eligible for. Then at some point when you become a buyer, then you can go back to the county program with the details and execute the terms of the agreement.
Okay, so I'm thinking of a young family right now that could utilize this. So do I send them to you? Do I send them to the county? What do we do?
You can send them to us first and we can get them directly to the county representative.
Wonderful, thank you. No, keep it. Let's just get the information out there so we can start utilizing it.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. Anyone else? I'll bring it back online. No? And back to the dais. Anyone have anything before we bring this to a vote? No? And anyone have a motion?
I'll motion to approve the resolution for an expenditure plan for the City of Escalon's fiscal year 2025-26, Home Investment Partnership Act, the HOME program.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. No nays. Okay, we'll go on to, I think, the last one before council communication on administrative matters.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. This item before you is as recommended through the council to consider, and much like we did at the last meeting, in consideration of an economic development committee. The item before you is consideration of the formation of an Escalon Measure P Citizens Advisory Committee. This item was brought forward by Councilmember Engel, supported by Mayor Hagan, to consider a committee, an advisory committee, up to, it's recommended at 3 members, but certainly could consider more at the discretion of the council, to help the council, as I understood the item, to help the council consider priorities for use of the Measure P funds. This is not termed an oversight committee or anything like that, but really an advisory committee. As we discussed at the last meeting for a different committee, the things to consider are the number of committee members, the makeup of the committee members. Do you want to specify that there should be some experience or expertise associated with any one thing on the committee and a spread of that expertise? The applicant committee member criteria, again, residency, registered voter, age, affiliation, professional background, similar to the makeup, but slightly different, especially as you look at residency. And then the responsibilities and commitments of the committee, as well as the recruitment and selection process. So those are the things that were discussed when this item was brought forward by council members. We have outlined details associated with each item in the staff report, and we're happy to answer or help guide the conversation in any way.
Any questions or comments up here?
Sure. Staff, as you looked through it and kind of explored the options, did you find something did you have a suggestion that was maybe congruent with the request?
I think in general, no, we are not making a recommendation in this staff report. We are outlining the topics that were raised. We have certainly seen these types of committees across the state, certainly locally and far-flung. And so it is not an uncommon request. And so therefore, we do not have any recommendations on the specifics associated as this was a council requested item.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions for Councilmember Engel. While I respect the formation of this committee, Where I am struggling with and what I don't understand is why we need to form a committee to basically tell council how we want the Measure P funds spent, when the reality is the five of us are the representative of the people that had us elected here in the first place. And so, I mean, if we're truly being the voice of the people and representing the people, is another committee necessary to try to explain to us or advise the council, well, this is where you should be spending the money? I mean, if we're doing our jobs as council members, we know where the community wants the Measure P funds spent. So is a Measure P committee really necessary?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to answer your question. So why? Yes, there are five of us up here that do have outreach, but we have, 7,500 other residents who may not feel comfortable coming to this meeting, or may not have existing relationships with us, but may have solid ideas which could impact our city. So the thought is furthering the outreach and getting kind of boots on the ground responses from folks. So when we're looking at like what the makeup of that committee would look like, hopefully the individuals would be passionate about that subject and be willing to go out and seek this information. While all of us up here have day jobs, and we come and we do this on Monday nights and every other night that a question may come to us, the hopes with that committee would be that they would be out seeking that information, gathering additional information. And for each one of us, right, we all have different vote counts. So we all maybe necessarily represent a different portion of the community. This is just to further that and try and broaden the reach to gather input on how the money should be spent. The citizens voted for the measure to pass. I feel like they should have more say in how it's spent, and not just leave it up to us. While we may have a handful or several handfuls of constituents that may speak to us, I don't think it's a full and complete accurate representation of our community. So that's my reasoning behind that. Do I think that we could choose how to spend the money? Yeah, of course we could choose, but are we sure and 100% positive that it's reflective of the community's wants? I would say no. It's respective of the individual context that we have. Is that?
One thing I would add to that is, we're looking at it from a normalcy bias of a short period of time. So you have to think about long-term as councils turn over and getting feedback as time goes by.
But if people are, so we developed or we adopted this strategic plan. And from that strategic plan, we established 4 goals of what we really want to focus on and how we could apply a percentage to what the anticipated revenues are from Measure P. And so that aligns with the strategic goals that council put forth for the next 2 years. So that's the marching orders that we have basically been given staff. This is what we want to focus on for the next 2 years. These are the percentages of the Measure P funds that we want to be spent. I mean, we could get community members that come up with Measure P ideas that are in complete variance of the strategic goals. And then what do we do?
Well, so yeah, I could agree with that. And we needed to have some orders for the immediate funds that would be coming in prior to the development of this committee. So we couldn't just sit on the money. We had to decide where it was going to go. And we did come up with a plan. Now that plan could change next year. The community could see that they want it to go a specific direction, and I believe that they should have some input on to where it goes. again, this isn't an oversight committee. It's intended for advice. So what information they sought out and were able to come back and share with us in conjunction with the information that we sought out and brought to the table to put those all together and make sure that we have as complete, accurate representation of our people as possible. We all may be up here and have our own ideas or thoughts of how the city should go, and that may make our decisions biased. I think that, listening to our residents could help to prevent that bias, and I really like the mayor's point. Some of our seats are coming up, next year, and then 2 years after that. What do we do to ensure that the council isn't making all of the decisions on how to spend that money every year, and that the residents really have their input? We look at the representation in our audience now. We know the folks that come regularly. So, what are we, like 0.001% of our residents? And I'm sure it could be a lot of reasons. Maybe they don't feel comfortable speaking in public. Maybe they're not aware that there is a meeting. But I'm sure there are some really great ideas out there. The town is full of talented and intelligent people, and I think it's smart to include them in the conversation. And ultimately, the decision does come back to us. If we do feel that they're a bunch of, really off-base recommendations or suggestions, that's up to us to discern that. But I do believe we owe it to them to listen to their opinion and weigh it according to the funds that we have, our wants, and the city's wants.
But for the record, the strategic plan goals have been established for the next 2 years. And so the way that right, wrong, or indifferent, the funding that was identified or the allocations based off those percentages, I viewed it as those are the funding sources for, well, they're just ballpark. That's kind of how we are aligning the strategic goals with the Measure P funds. And I totally 100% support getting out in the community and listening to what our residents want. And I understand it can be intimidating coming to the podium. But I'm all for listening to the people, but I'm questioning if this Citizens Advisory Committee is actually necessary.
Yeah, is it necessary? I don't necessarily know if it's necessary. I'm kind of hearing it differently. I'm hearing you say that you've made a decision and you don't want the residents to have any input towards that. That's personally what I'm hearing.
No, that's completely and 100% wrong. I absolutely want to hear what the people want because we're elected by the people. What I'm wondering is if this committee is in variance with the strategic plan goals that we've set forth as a council. That's my concern.
I think this is really more to fine tune those broader goals is the way I see it. In other words, you may have brainstorming information from these people that might allow us to fine tune one specific area of the strategic plan, I guess is how I'm seeing it. So I'm looking at it more as like an additional information, like as if I was reading on a subject and I got an extra book that helped me fill in some of that information. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just allowing you to have a little bit more of a detailed understanding of what's, the pulse of what's going on in the community. So like when you go out and talk to the community, you may not necessarily be talking to every walk of life. You're naturally hanging out with maybe certain people that maybe aren't in that typical circle you're, in. So the more we get a broad spectrum look at the community, the more likely we are to make sure we're not missing any ideas that might be there. Now, bear in mind they could be whack. Yeah, they could be, not feasible, but I think it's important to know what ideas are there, because, 90% of the time, what you're hearing is not gonna get you much, but 10% is gold. And once in a while, we get something that go, oh, I never thought about that. I think that's how I'm looking at it.
Well, like I said, I'm not saying that it's not important to hear from the community. I mean, the community, we would not have Measure P if the community did not vote on the sales measure in the first place. I recognize that. I just want to make sure that,
It's necessary.
yeah.
Well, I mean, that's part of it. There's ambiguity in the measure itself. So there is no, because it was a special tax measure, there was no specifically defined areas or funds that percentages must be given to. The people that voted on it should 100% be able to come in and say, hey, I voted for this because X, Y, Z. And at least allowed to plead their case, or this committee can be able to go out and find out if there's more interest in that and look for those possibilities. We as a council had that meeting, which was an open session. People could come, but we had 1-2 residents that actually showed up. Didn't have a lot of input on what we did there. I could see how that could be perceived maybe as private or not very transparent. I do also understand that it could be a slippery slope, that we could get, 3 to 5 people in there that could completely disagree, and it could turn the meeting into some sort of circus. But I still think we owe it to the people that voted on that measure an opportunity to tell us how they would like that money spent.
May I, Mr. Mayor? So I can see this as an information gathering group. We have other ways that we are information gathering. Typically, we have workshops where we invite people here to tell us what their opinions are on our extra funds, or if we have any through Measure P and so forth. I started not supporting this group, but now that we're talking about it a little bit more, a lot of people don't want to come to our workshops. They're shy to come to council, but they wouldn't necessarily be shy to talk to representatives in the community who we're trying to information gather to bring it back to council in the way we have other representatives out for other committees. So I can see that this would be a way to information gather from those who are not around, as long as the people that are sitting on the committee don't have special interests that they're trying to push our Measure P funds to be. And that would be my concern, is that it is only 3 citizens, and being very careful who we pick to put on those, because, I support our business owners. However, our business owners are all going to have their special interests for their specific businesses. So we are going to have an open mind when they come and bring us information. But I think this will allow some citizens to privately share with another person so that they can publicly share with us and kind of gather information, so.
And I see your point on that, too.
Yeah, and then the other is, we won't be here in 4 years. I mean, we could not be here. This could be 5 different people. And as much as I trust us to listen to the citizens who come and bring us information, I don't know who's gonna be here in 4 years. I don't know if I trust them. So putting this on the books, having someone bring us some information might secure more information.
Some accountability
Some
also.
accountability, yeah.
Makes sense.
Councilmember Engel, did you have any thoughts on how folks would gather this information? I mean, do you think they're gonna be like at an event like Park Feed or something, and have a little table set up, provide feedback on Measure P, or?
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
That is a great idea.
Sean.
So really, hopefully.
I don't know if you got that far in the process yet, that's.
No, we made some suggestions in there, which I think some of them are outlined. You have some responsibilities and commitments on there, right? Under the responsibilities and commitments, I think this is something that we had on the original request, right? Connect with, solicit input from various sections of the public during tenure on the committee, right? So actively seeking this information. This isn't going to work from somebody who isn't active in the community, who's not going to go out and seek that information. They were also, in the initial request, talked about having meetings amongst themselves to kind of gather that information, put it together, and then having presentations to us. I think it was at the mid-year and then also at the annual budget review time. So while we do have some plans in place, you know, in a year from now, the wants and needs could change. And I think we're on a good track for this year, and everybody's doing a good job keeping us on track. We still don't have a 100% view of what the funds are going to look like. We have a great estimate. Thank you, Celinda, right? We think we know what it's going to be, but you know, what if there happens to be a surplus, or we are able to bring in an additional business or two in the next couple of years, and those funds increase? I think I strayed from your question. Back to your question of how are they going to do it?
Yeah.
I hope that we can provide them with some direction, like maybe the advice that you just provided, but they will also listen to them on their ideas when they come to do their application interview process. I mean, that'd be a great question, right? How do you intend on gathering this information? What are your thoughts on outreach?
Any other thoughts before we put it out to public? I'll go out to public, excuse me, the audience. Anyone like to say anything? Gabriella?
I'm fully in support of this. I would recommend to the council that it be 3 members. I think an even number is going to be problematic, and I think 5 people is too many cooks in the kitchen. My one concern is, will the council really consider what is being brought back to them? Because what is the point if you're going to decide otherwise? Melinda, what you said was right on, and I applaud you for thinking about us residents. Sean, I'm gonna put you in the hot seat. You are the voice of the people,
Right.
but you're not considering the people. Not only did we put you all in your position by electing you, but we are the ones that voted for this and are paying the tax just as you are. And if you were in my seat, you would want to have some sort of say-so or insight to provide on where that money should be going. You say that you know where we want to spend it. How did you come to that conclusion? I personally have never had a conversation with you where you've asked me where I would like to see that money. How are you going about finding this out? You talk about the strategic plan, and I may be wrong, but is the strategic plan specific to Measure P, or is that specific to the general fund and the regular revenue that we anticipate annually? This is an additional tax, additional revenue that was only able to become available because of the constituents. You work for the constituents.
I'm aware of that.
So then you should do what's right for what the people want, and the people want to have a say-so. To me, this seems like this is about power and control and not letting the community decide where they want to see the money. If we decide as the community that we want to give it all to the police department, then ultimately you should respect that. Now, I think that coming with the criteria of having people that have some sort of education of business management, bookkeeping, budgeting, or some sort of criteria so we know that it's just not some random person making requests will help this be a process to where we're considering the budget, because that's the most important thing. Where are the shortfalls in the budget? Where can we add more money? We need to add more money to the rec according, for the next year's budget. Well, that would be one main thing to consider. Somebody that has the experience of coming here or watching and listening to what our current issues are going to be able to provide the feedback that is necessary to help appropriate these funds. I think it's a bit selfish to not want to include the community when we're the ones that ultimately want to know where this money is going to go and want to have a say-so in.
Okay.
Sherry, you have something to say? Okay.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry, but I guess it's my night. You know, I'm one of those that comes and sits on a regular basis. Sometimes I open my mouth and sometimes I don't. Tonight I'm on a roll. First of all, Melinda, thank you. I loved your comments, and I'm glad you brought it forward, Jeremy and Andy. Thank you. The residents voted on Measure P, and so I think looking at it, you know, ultimately put it out there. If nobody applies for it, there's your answer. But to answer, Sean, please just hear me out. When you say something, I mean, Jeremy's comment, honestly, sitting back there, it really does sound like you don't want to hear it. And then you repeat it, and then you repeat it, and you say the same thing. And so it kind of solidifies that you really don't want to hear. So be mindful of repeating the same statement several times because it really does sound that way. So I hope you would consider this. I hope you would put it forward. And again, if nobody applies, there's your answer. But if people apply, the more input you have outside of the chamber, people are talking anyway. You know, so some of us voted for it, and we didn't do it for the strategic plan of the budget. We did it for specific things that we had in our heads. I, for one, for example, you know, I would love to see our police get more. So some of our citizens have ideas like that, and they have practical ideas that would help certain areas of our city, and they would like to see it. The people that voted, they had very specific ideas of how they wanted to improve the city. So I think you owe it to at least put it out there. And if nobody responds, nobody responds. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. So nothing lost.
You want to come up?
Hi, I'm Terry Niskern. I've come 2 or 3 times to these meetings, and as the public side of this, maybe the reason we don't want to come to the meeting is because of this kind of a demonstration where you nice people here are getting attacked personally. We don't want to come and hear people getting blasted like that. We want to know the issues. And I appreciate this last lady. She had a good demeanor about her, but somebody once wrote, let us all come together and reason together. And that's what these meetings are for, and I think that you guys can agree with me. I don't appreciate you people, you good people here, getting blasted like this on a personal note, calling you, you know, controlling, and no wonder you don't want to have these meetings if this is what it's going to be about, is you're going to get blasted every time. This is the 2nd or 3rd time I've been here, and these public comes and blast you guys. It's very upsetting to watch and listen to. It doesn't stay on the issue, it goes personal, and that's what I don't like about these meetings. So you said that maybe some people don't want to come here. They're too shy to come up. This is a big deal for me to come up to the podium. But what about, you know, online? Isn't this thing online? And what about communicating with people online by, what's the thing where you can do the face contact, whatever that's called?
Like FaceTime?
Yeah. And there's other options. And Sean, I wanted to know, what is it? Is it because it's money that maybe you guys don't want to do this? Is it going to cost the city money to?
No,
Okay, it's just
absolutely not.
time
So
and getting blasted like you just did?
I think he's just trying to understand it.
I'm trying to understand the process. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not saying, hell no. I'm just trying to understand the purpose of the committee, what actually it does, what if there's variance. But I also respect the fact that I wouldn't be sitting in this seat right now if it weren't for the people.
I agree with that.
And so.
But do you deserve to come and be blasted? This is like the 2nd or 3rd time that I've come here and
That's not part of
panel
this
is getting
discussion.
blasted. That's not fun for us out here to watch and not be able to speak, you know. That's why I came up here, is because enough is enough. we're all adults here, let's come together and reason together. Don't be putting it on a personal notice, a personal vendetta and, saying you're controlling and da-da-da. That doesn't need to be done here. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? We'll come back to online. Anything online? Anything else further up here before we take this thing to the next step?
Yes,
So,
I think I need to make a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go for it.
And my comment is, I'm not saying that a Measure P Citizens Advisory Committee is absolutely not. And I respect what you were saying, Gabriella. I respect what you're saying, Sherry. My questioning for Councilmember Engel was not to put him on the spot, to not questioning the validity of his idea. I mean, that's our job as council members, is to suggest ideas.
Ask difficult questions.
The purpose is just so that I get a better understanding, because right now, if somebody comes to me and says, what's this Measure P Citizens Advisory Committee about? Before tonight, my answer would have been, I don't know, you're gonna have to talk to Jeremy. So my questioning was just try to understand his thought process, what the formation of that. And so if I gave the impression to you all, or the impression to the community that their voice didn't matter, hell no. Everybody's voice matters in this community, period. And when the five of us represent all 7,425 plus residents of the community. And so it is our sales tax dollars, it is our money. We spend it every time we go to McDonald's or whatever. And everybody's voice matters. I was just questioning, trying to understand where he was coming with that. And I'll leave it at that.
sure. So when I started, I was, this sounded a little redundant in my opinion, but coming to the realization this is just another source of information gathering from our public. And so the assumption that whatever this group says is what's going to be done, they're actually just going to bring information to council, and it will be one source of information. We also have in the past had city hall meetings that are open to the public where information can come to us. We always have our city council meetings twice a week or twice a month. And then people in the street, if they don't feel like they're being listened to from the Citizens Advisory Committee, they can come to us directly, and it will be just one more source. And so I can see how it can sound redundant, but like I said, I've kind of come around because these people have more outreach than that, and it's just one more source. So I can see both sides of it, and that's where I want, going forward, I just want it to be known that this is one source of information to information gather and make sure that our information, our individuals and our citizens are reached. And so as long as there's an understanding going forward with what, that they're giving, they're an advisory board. They're
Correct.
They're an advisory board and going to be one source of information for council to consider when going forward on these types of Measure P
Yeah, it'll help you clear,
situations.
I think it'll help you clear up if you're struggling between a decision of allocating funds into one general area or another.
I think it'll be great
When you're getting like a strong sense of people wanting it in one direction, it would help make you, help you, kind of guide you to that decision.
I think it'll be great for brainstorming and give us just one more source of information from
Correct.
many people, so
That's how I feel too, correct.
that's where it come around to.
Anyone else? Jeff, you have any thoughts on this? Or Councilman? Okay, sorry.
I think that this is a good thing. I 100% think that this is a good thing. Like you guys have said, not just the, additional information that we may, get from it, but the additional contacts. I think that when we brought this up originally, I stated that, the five of us have, our reach that we can kind of get to. Having three more people that have a reach, maybe different corners, town, than people that, we don't come into contact with or don't have a way to contact, aside from, going around and, knocking on doors and asking them, hey, how do you think we should spend this Measure P money? So I think this committee is a great thing to just have another revenue for people to be able to make contact with City Hall, essentially, with their local government and say, this is how we want our dollars to be spent. These are the things that matter to us here. I will say, as far as the strategic plan goes, a lot of that came from knocking on doors and campaigning. And while we were out campaigning, talking to, citizens, the feedback that we got from them, over the last several years and, then myself while I was, running for city council, a lot of the things that are on that strategic plan, that was direct sentiment from public. However, we can't go do that on a regular basis. I killed myself for 2.5, 3 months every night. That's not something that I can continue to do in perpetuity. So having other individuals that can just, make contact with, our residents and get more, input as far as the things that they want and the things that they care about here, I think that that's very important. So I'm 100% for this. So I guess that my next question here is, as far as your specifics that are already, kind of lined out here, is there anything that other council members, have feelings about the way that this should be set? We kind of gone back and forth between, 3 and 5 and all of that fun stuff when we were originally talking about it.
Yeah, I personally think 3 sounds, for this particular advisory committee, seems like it would be the right number.
Yeah, I agree.
But I don't know how everyone else feels, but.
And then as far as, education and all of that sort of thing, I don't think we should put any stipulations on, anybody putting in an application for it and coming in and giving their 2 cents as to why they want to be on the committee.
Okay. Yeah, that can be assessed during the interview process.
Exactly.
I guess my question is, how do we minimize political positioning?
I'm sure. What do you mean?
So it's on here, responsibility, commitments, minimize political positioning during tenure on the committee. So I'll give you an example. Recently, there's been a couple votes where Mayor Pro Tem and I voted against an item, and the mayor, Councilmember Engel, and Councilman Kay voted for the item.
Okay.
If we limit it to 3 items, or 3 members, what's to prevent the 3 of you from finding folks that think along your lines, and now they're your advisory committee members, and they're saying they're now getting involved into the politics side of council?
Well, I guess that would be a couple things. You could do the same thing, but.
Right.
But I can't speak for everyone, but that's not my intention. I think whoever comes here and gets interviewed and you decide on it could be anyone in the community. So if you wanted to encourage someone in particular because you thought they were a good fit, I don't see a problem with that. But, if you're trying to play politics in the background, I don't know how an advisory committee would really allow you to do that, but maybe I'm just missing something.
I just want to make sure that we're not extending the politics side of a 3-member committee to a simple majority.
I'm not.
That's what my fear is.
Definitely not my intent or was ever a thought in my mind. I assumed that line was kind of put in there, minimize political positioning. Well, if they're serving on the committee and, the 3 seats that are up 2 years from now, maybe they shouldn't be out campaigning for those 3, people, that sort of thing. I was assuming that was kind of what that meant.
Was that the intention behind that statement?
There are going to be certain topics as we move forward that will have more input, more concentration on. And what we want to see, I think, what I've heard, is the council wants to see an advisory group who is representative of the broader community. So not an individual who's sort of there for one topic. right? And they are trying to get that topic moved forward is really what you.
I think you could,
is what was written then.
you could expound upon that and put some verbiage in there. You know, you can't, as you're going out in this committee, you're not, going out in the capacity of, what do you call it, like you're campaigning.
Electioneering for any member of council.
Yeah, I mean, you could put something in there, that way, if it was reported back to you that that was going on, then there could be an internal review to make sure, you know what I'm saying? I think that's would be appropriate, so then if there was any kind of shenanigans of that kind, you could have a check and balance to it.
But to address, I mean, I wouldn't be in opposition to more than 3 folks. I don't necessarily think it's not necessarily a voting body, so even there being an even number, I'm not in opposition to there being 4 or 5 for that matter, because really their job is to have outreach into the public, meet amongst themselves, and then present recommendations that they came up with. So, could 2 of the 3 not agree? I mean, they could, but ultimately it's for the benefit of the community. And I want to address the last bullet point under responsibilities and commitments, review revenues and expenditures of funds generated from Measure P. We also have an opportunity here for additional educational purposes out to our residents as we review budgets. And if they're sitting down and looking at budgets with us and can see the areas where we are struggling, which would imply that we can't spend these monies in necessarily the area that they want to, it is also additional outreach for us to inform the public, right? As they see, well, hey, we've looked at the budget, we see where we are, it's really tight. I know you want to give all your money over here, but you also have to understand that there's only this much money. Okay. And we have to spread it out, right? So, I mean, if we start at the top, just to try and wrap this up, it sounds like we're mostly in favor of doing it. I think the first item there to address is the number of committee members. So we have 3, 4, 5. Can we get consensus on?
I'm a 3.
The amount?
I agree. I think that 3 is a good number there, so there's, not too much going on there, Reviewing budgets and talking about finances is a, pretty big deal, and we kind of just had a good time with that in our closed session, so you can see how that can get off the rail when there's 5 different people, that are talking about all their opinions and stuff.
The only reason the last meeting I suggested 5 people was to align every other committee that we have within the city of Escalon. Every other committee has 5 members, so why couldn't this one have 5 members as well?
It could.
There's no reason it couldn't. Mayor Pro Tem, where do you sit?
Indifferent. It could have 3, it could have 5. I more am hoping that we're pushing that they are out there to not give us their opinion, but to find opinions out there and share it with us.
Agreed.
And so what I'm hearing up here is not enforcing that message. And so that's what I'm hoping, is that we're informing them of that. I really like the idea of getting out to like the farmer's market and having someone sit. Is 3 enough to be able to always have somebody available to be at the places? That's my question, is if 3 is not enough so that there's always somebody available to be where we need them to be. 5 might be a better idea.
For a time, we could put that in there if you wanted to.
Yeah, it was part of the
It
original
says-
discussion between Jalen and I when I was submitting it was, we could even give them a small budget. Maybe it's a couple $100 for them, the ability to do that, right? A very small budget, doesn't have to be thousands of dollars, but a couple $100 to be able to rent a booth at any one of those events, or.
I'd love to see that. How about some forms that someone could fill out and just put in the box and they can review them, or they can come back to us? Those types of things would
I
be,
think those are good ideas, and they would require a small budget.
and they would require a small budget.
Well, I mean, you could even expound upon that and do a online survey and have a little, someone, I don't know what the rules are for give to public funds, but if they a winner is chosen at random and they got a $25 gift card or something just to.
All great ideas, and that's just amongst us 5. So I think adding a few more heads to that mix could come up potentially with some even better ideas in conjunction with the ones that we have. So again, I think first thing that we need to do is figure out that number. You said you were indifferent. Do we want to meet in the middle? I'm hearing 3, I'm hearing 5. Do we want to meet in the middle and call it 4?
I think it should be odd. So, I mean, I would go 5.
Let's go 5, and if we don't get 5, we'll still move forward.
I'm definitely not.
5 seats available.
5's my
Okay.
max.
All right. So it sounds like, do we have consensus for 5?
Consensus for 5.
That's fine.
All right.
I think keeping it, like Sean said, in line with the rest of the committees sounds logical. Okay, and then making a statement, I think, in here, to prevent campaigning in this position or slander in this position. It's really to drive the,
Can we expand upon the very first bullet that says, connect with and solicit input from various sections of the public during tenure on the committee? Personal biases, something along those lines.
Yeah, I think the intention is not to go out there spewing, garbage. It would be to getting genuine input.
We can definitely make that one of our interview questions as well. Can you maintain that your biases will be left out of this, and public opinion is what you'll bring back to us?
And I think these were just suggestions, so I think if we go, suggestions from staff, kind of ideas based on our conversation and also the original request, I think if we can address those, but if we can go down bullet point through bullet point, we can actually get through this all the way to the end.
Okay.
So, I mean, the next part is makeup of committee members.
Yeah, 5. I said 5, and I think you said.
No, the makeup.
That's the
We
next
got the
bullet.
number down, now we're wondering,
Oh.
okay, what's the makeup?
Anyone in town, right?
I mean, could we agree with the statement there? While not required to ensure a diverse segment of the community is represented and to ensure various interests are represented, strong preference could be given to the applicants, I'm assuming that means that, represent groups such as schools, business community, Chamber of Commerce, nonprofit organizations, senior youth groups, recreation, and neighborhoods. I mean, it's kind of a broad statement, could be.
Pretty much anyone.
Fix the typo in there.
Well, pretty much anyone, and that leaves it up to our discretion at the time of interviews.
We have consensus on that?
I did.
You're pretty
I'm good. Yeah.
All right, this is the one that's going to require probably a little more discussion, right? The member criteria. So resident of the city, registered voter, age, affiliation, professional background. Do we have any suggestions for those? I mean, just to start, I think registered voter, yes, a must.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me
So
throw
they
a
must be
curve.
18 or older, is what we're saying?
Registered voter and
Registered voter must be.
All right.
So let me ask you a question about that. So we have some high school seniors that are 17 that really want to give back to the community.
they're not 18. That's what I'd say.
But what I'm saying is there's 17-year-old high school seniors that they're going to McDonald's after school too.
I think they should talk to a committee member about their opinions, and they'll bring it to them.
I agree.
I mean, that's
They
what
can't
this
vote
is
for a reason.
right?
That's kind of the part that's up to us, right? As we're discerning through the applications and looking who's the best fit for this, not saying that they couldn't be, but them versus a productive member of our community for the last 30 or 40 years in various industries and responsibilities may be the better choice in that instance. So I think that's at our discretion to kind of look at, but I think we have to have some base minimums.
I think voting age seems logical to me.
Just registered voter, you had to have voted on the thing.
Registered voter, voting age.
Oh, yeah, and then it makes sure that it's somebody that actually supported Measure, it voted one direction or the other for Measure P.
Yeah.
Even if they voted against it, it doesn't really matter, but as long as they voted for it and.
Well, my concern with that is
On it.
over time that, as people kick the bucket, eventually you don't have voter, Measure P
All right.
anymore.
And come on.
Registered voter, I still would make a requirement.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, no matter what,
Okay.
I don't think I would budge on that.
So one we did talk about previously was residency of city. We did talk about it in the previous meeting about their activity in the community, whether they had a business here or their kids went to school. Do we want to make it that they must reside in the city? They must reside in the 95320? They must work here? They must have kids go to school here? Is there any requirement for residency? For our other committees, it can vary. For this body, they'll have to reside in city limits. For planning commission, I believe it's 4 have to be in city limits and 1. Is it all for planning commission? And then for rec, it's 3 in and 2 out? Right?
3 out, 2 in.
Three out, 2 in.
3 out, 2 in.
With the change.
So could we expand upon the residency of the city and just say residency or business owner within the city? Because the business owners are affected.
Business owners have an opportunity to talk to folks. I have no objection.
Yeah, I don't think that I would be supportive of a business owner that doesn't live in city limits, personally.
Well, we do have a business committee already.
Can you explain?
They didn't vote for Measure P, one direction or the other. They didn't vote for any of us. While their business may be affected by the city, they chose to own a business and do business here. It's different than the residents of the community. So that's my personal opinion.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
So 95320 or city limits?
I think 95320.
95320.
Okay, so now we're inviting people from Farmington to apply to,
There you have a different zip code.
in Farmington?
Yeah.
What's the zip code?
95361, I think, or 66.
I have the map up right here.
320, does that encompass Collegeville?
Maybe as far as Collegeville.
Maybe I'm confusing Farmington and Collegeville, but I'm just
No,
trying.
you're right. It goes up to Farmington.
It does?
Yeah.
Well, the Farmington has some zip
I
code.
mean, it goes up to the,
And Escalon.
I like your sphere of influence, right?
Well, like the Escalon, it has an Escalon address somewhere. Like it may be out of the city limits, but there's an Escalon address. Is that what you're saying?
Okay,
Yeah,
but
we're just trying to, come.
Farmington is still kind of, yeah.
I like 95320.
I thought they had their own zip code. I was sure of it.
You're close, huh?
So I heard a couple for 95320.
Yeah, I'm fine in
I
95320.
think it's okay.
All right, so registered voter 95320.
yes, Frank.
And I don't want to make this conversation go longer, but at the same time, and I don't want to weigh in on policy, but I've dealt with a lot of advisory tax measure committees, and I've never seen them come from outside the city.
Okay.
And because the question is not who's contributing to the revenue from whether, because that could be somebody from Alaska, right?
who
That's visiting in
benefits?
town.
Yeah.
The question really is, who is going to benefit from the use of the tax measure? And that's only going to be residents.
Within the city limits.
Yes.
The only reason I tend to disagree with that a little bit about Escalon is that we have people, that are 10 miles away that are still Escalonians,
Yeah.
And their kids go to school here, they still play in all of our, sports programs and on our football teams, they go to the same high schools.
Go to the park after school.
If they did,
use all
yeah.
of our
Jeff, to
streets.
your point there earlier, though, they didn't vote on Measure P if they were
That's true.
outside the city
This
limits.
is also true.
Well, let's go with that then. Sounds good.
Within the city
Which one?
limits.
In city limits?
City limits, yeah.
So, age or are we voting age, affiliation? I don't, do we need to require them to be affiliated with a certain
I hope they're not.
clique or profession? I don't think that we do, or have a
Well,
professional
I think
background.
that was having some kind of affiliation with the city, right? In some fashion,
what that
form,
meant?
that sort of thing.
Okay.
Right.
How can we more clearly define that?
I don't know, because I don't know what the question is. I don't know what the word term affiliation means, especially in
I just-
2025.
I just
You can
scratched.
affiliate with anything.
I think you just keep
I
it
am
simple.
affiliated with this water ball.
Resident of the city, you're 18, you're a registered voter, keep it simple. And then, we can always interview those questions, I think. Which council member did you vote for?
Are you a member of the Pastafarian political party? So we're striking affiliation, professional background, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
I think those are things that you could make a decision on during the interview process, right?
Okay.
Registered voter in the city limits sounds like what we've come up with for member
Age 18.
criteria. We're good with that?
And age 18.
Well, not a registered voter.
18-year-old registered.
Can't be a registered voter if you're under 18.
Responsibilities, again,
Pre-register, but you can't register.
I think these are just some suggestions, but I think there's some pretty solid ones if we wanted to amend or add or subtract any of those.
Or responsibilities?
Yes, and you had one you were talking about, you wanted to,
Want to amend number 1, I think, right?
Yeah, and expand upon bullet number 4, that the recommendations at a minimum should be provided to council at mid-year budget and prior to at the budget workshop going into the next fiscal year.
we talked about that. City Manager, did we talk about the quarter prior to allow for, do you remember that conversation at all?
Yeah, you had mentioned meeting and maybe recommendations quarterly.
So that we had that information prior to budget, so we had time to give Celinda some information, not say, hey, Belinda, or Celinda, I'm sorry. Thanks for preparing the budget, but can you change these things, please?
So we're doing 4 presentations to council instead of 2?
Well, if we did 2, I think it could be off-cycle, so it would be prior to. So if we're doing one at the end of Q2, we would be looking at it at end of Q1, which gives enough preparation for year end, and then we would be doing one at end of Q3 in preparation for mid-year. At a minimum, they should be presenting to us twice a year.
That sounds good. And then I think you wanted some language in there, bulletproof, bullet point 3, right? What we had talked about.
Yeah, we want to make sure that they're completely non-biased.
Would we remove their ability at that point then to run for a period of time after?
Yeah, if they were caught,
tenure?
if they were caught campaigning or stuff like that.
Let's say if they did it for 2 years and then at the end of that 2 years, they wanted to campaign, can we, council, can we put a restriction on that so that they didn't lobby for themselves? That they couldn't run for.
Give me an example.
So they're out there on the committee, they're skewing things in their favor, maybe having conversations, trying to make promises, and then the next coming election, they decide to run to fulfill those promises. Could we put a restriction that they couldn't run for like 2 years or whatever after completion, or something like that, or year?
No.
No?
No, because we'd be violating state law at that point.
Okay.
Any registered elector of the city is entitled to run for office.
What guardrails can we put on that?
In terms of running for office?
Well, to not politicize their.
I think you could just make it a, what was that? Yeah, I would just say that the council has the prerogative at any time to remove anybody for any reason or no reason. So, you know, I think it's just, you can make very clear what the scope and the purpose of the committee is, and if you feel like any committee member is going ultra virus beyond what they're really charged to do, you don't need to make a federal case about it, you just simply exercise power to remove that.
You just put this means no bias, no slander, no political, you know, like,
No electioneering.
kind of defined what that means more, I guess
Yeah.
is what I mean.
We can, it's hard to get it with such specificity that all of those words.
Basically, so they're not campaigning for themselves or saying like, oh, Councilman Kay, he really sucks, you know.
You just had to use me, didn't you?
You know what I'm saying? Stuff like that.
I think it's easier to say, yeah, we can, I don't think we're gonna be able, we're not, this is just get direction today, so I'll take note of what I'm hearing. I think it's easier to affirmatively say what their job is to do.
Yeah.
What's not to do?
Than what not to do.
Okay.
Because that's
That's
potentially
more of an
endless.
more of a etiquette type.
Well, it's just very clear if you say your job is to do A, B, and C, then if they're doing anything that's not A, B, and C,
Okay.
that's problematic.
Then CD.
And if you couple that with a clear removal process, I think that
Makes sense.
covers every base you may have.
Makes sense.
And I'll just mention, maybe political isn't the right word. Really, what we're going at, and this is a good conversation too, is not to have an individual entrenched in one topic that they want to see move
Yeah.
forward. So political in that way, whereas this is intended to be a magnifier of your outreach into the community.
Yeah.
And if you have one who's just entrenched in an issue and trying to push that forward, unless they're truly hearing from the community, I think that was part of what I heard at the last meeting and why we put that in there.
Yeah.
Frank, because they're an extension of council, would they be required to go through the required ethics and anti-harassment training?
I believe that since they are going to be making recommendations on policy, they will be subject to the Form 700 requirements. And as a Form 700 filer, they have to take those required.
Should probably make a note of that as well.
Okay,
Mayor Pro Tem brought up a great point. Would you like to share?
Length of tenure, we'll need to decide on how long they'll be part of this committee and whether we stagger them. We have 2 and 3, yeah.
I think we should definitely do the staggering.
Okay, and length of tenure, what are our other committees? Our commissions are 3 years, is that right? Does that sound reasonable?
Planning Commission's 4 years, Recreation Commission's 3 years.
I think a 3-year sounds
3 years sounds reasonable.
reasonable.
Three-year alternating?
Alternating, yep.
Well, they would align after 2, right?
You'd
Oh,
probably,
yeah, you're
you'd
right.
probably have 3 members that serve a 3-year and 2 members that serve a 2-year, or
Okay.
vice versa.
And they would align after 3 terms.
Oh, no?
3 and 3 is 6, and 2 and 2 is 6.
Can't do math. I think that, I mean,
I don't think.
city council members don't have the problem, and they're staggered every 2 years, so maybe just make it every 2 years.
Correct.
Let's go 2.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay?
all right, we're getting there.
Under recruitment selection process, I think that they should be there on their own, separate. So we want to make sure that they're not holding multiple committee spots. Like, because if they're out there talking to the community and let's say they're on planning commission too, so they're talking to the public, are they talking as a planning commissioner, are they talking about Measure P advisory? Just so happens they got on the economic development committee. I understand we're a small community and people wear multiple hats, but we should probably limit them to one role on this committee. So it doesn't confuse the general public as far as what voice they're speaking from. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. Does anyone else have an issue with that? All right, sounds good.
Our standard recruitment process though, right, is the same thing that we do for every other committee.
So,
The only other thing I'd like to ask for when we get to fiscal impact is I'd like to talk about like a $500 annual budget. I think that gives them the ability to bring in donuts while they meet, or print up flyers, or rent that booth. Is that,
we're there now, aren't we, at the fiscal?
yeah,
Okay,
And just to be clear, this will be a Brown Act body.
Brown Act body?
This will be subject to the Brown Act,
Okay.
this committee.
okay,
I want to make everyone, yeah, that wasn't,
because of the money, or
not
just in
because,
general?
not because of the money.
Okay.
That's just when because he mentioned the donuts. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh, did they think this is just going to be like hanging out and having donuts and talking? It's going to be a formal meeting under the Brown Act,
Okay,
Which
They're-
puts
they're-
guardrails on it, right? So.
which is fine. Yeah, you want to be public anyways.
You can still have donuts there, right?
You can still have donuts at a Brown Act meeting, yes.
But if 2 of them are out at a farmer's market,
There can only be 2.
yeah, I mean, if there's a 5-member,
You're gonna have the same issues with Brown Act compliance as you would with any other body. They're gonna be subject to all the same rules. So 2 of them will not be able to talk with a third at any time about Measure P.
They're allowed to talk about the farmer's market.
Yes, they're allowed to talk about anything other than Measure P because their jurisdiction is just Measure P. As city council, you have a broader jurisdiction over this.
does anyone have a problem with $500?
No.
Not at all.
Okay, all righty then, so I
As
think
long as the
we're,
money comes from Public Works.
okay.
As long as they get the donuts. We get to bring them donuts too.
You have been saving a lot of money lately, so.
Yeah, we heard it earlier.
Year's not over, I wait. I just wait.
It's a lot of donuts at Public Works.
All righty then, so I think we're done with this, right?
Thank you, Justin. Appreciate it. My sentiments exactly.
You weren't loving this one,
So we need to make an official nod to this?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move to approve the formation of Measure P Citizens Advisory Committee with the amendments as provided by council.
Can you second?
like you wanted to.
Just waiting for you. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. No nays. All right. Okay, on to council communications. Councilman Kay.
I'm not really going to say a whole heck of a lot, but I just want to say I've really appreciated the collaboration that all of us have had tonight. I really enjoy it when the five of us are able to get along and talk about multiple subjects and cover multiple bases and do it respectfully and have a good time doing it. So I just want to thank you guys all for, being up here with me and all of us having a good night tonight.
Okay.
That's it.
Last time, I think I went Engel, right? So this time, it's Councilman Stroman.
Kind of reiterate what Councilmember Kay said. To staff, keep on doing the fantastic job you're doing. Really, really appreciate everybody's hard work, especially Celinda. It was mentioned earlier, but it's amazing that the financial reporting that we're receiving is very readable, very understandable. When community members have questions, you're always quick to respond. And really, really appreciate all of your hard work. Thank you. And same goes for city manager and public works and chief of police. I mentioned it last year. I will continue to mention it, that I think that the city of Escalon is in a really, really, really good spot right now because we're all working together and really coming together as a community. And while the five of us may not always agree, at least we will listen to other people's perspectives and take that into account. And that's truly government. Staff or Public Works, as you know, I'm getting hit up a lot for weeds, not necessarily on city property, but also for our residents. So we may really want to take a hard look at some properties because it's hay fever season. And, I think before we come down hard on residents, it sounds crazy, but some folks may not even own a lawnmower. And so I think we need to be good stewards and not just hit them with a code violation. We should probably do some door knocking, find out if they have an issue. Because if they have an issue and they don't have a lawnmower, maybe there's something that we can work out. So kind of providing a human aspect, that customer service. As I'm not saying that you're going to be out cutting people's lawns, Justin, but I'm saying that you really set the bar high when you went out and started door knocking about Yosemite. And I know your own personal philosophy is that this is your town, and let's just keep that spirit of camaraderie and community moving forward. That's all I have.
Okay. Councilman Engel?
Yeah, quickly, to staff, to the audience, to the council, thank you for working through the Measure P Citizens Advisory Committee and getting it done. I have nothing further. Thank you.
Tim Walker?
Sure, just real quick, community reminders that farmers market's coming up, so make sure that you are attending, going out and participating in your community, and go help those people who are manning the farmers market. It's a great event and has turned into a great event in the last couple of years, so more people to show up, the better it'll be. And then the other, and I'll see you before that, but we have Love Escalon coming up on the 26th, but signups are going on right now. So go ahead and just Google Love Escalon and you can sign up for a project. And I'm sure more projects will be added as days go by. So hope to see you guys out at both of those events coming up. And that's all I got.
There's not much else I can add. Everyone touched on everything I was thinking, so have a good rest of your evening. Thank you.
45 minutes.